So, if you clicked on this video, chances are you are the owner of a very old, antiquated access control system. Or you're a systems integrator that has customers that have really old access control systems. In either case, you've assessed that perhaps the access control system that you're using today may not fit your needs anymore. Let's face it, technology gets better, and access control systems tend to last a long time. So chances are you're probably going through a process of saying, this system that I put in 10 or 15 years ago, is it still serving me, or is it still serving my customer given the ever-changing dynamics in the security industry? There are all sorts of threats that exist today that didn't exist when your system initially went in 10 or 15 years ago. But how do you even go about migrating from that older antiquated system to something like Genetec Synergis, or really any other access control system? You probably have hundreds or even thousands of cardholders, a myriad of different schedules and rules, and your access control database is probably pretty massive at this point. What you need is a migration. And that's what this video is all about. Today, I am talking to a very good colleague of mine named Sebastian Pilot from Genetec's Professional Services Division. In this conversation, we do our best to stay as agnostic as possible, with the understanding, obviously, I wear the Genetec shirt. We're really talking about Genetec Synergis, but the concepts that we're going to discuss today are true whether you're migrating from some older system to something other than Genetec Synergis. Though why would you even do that? So let's dive in. All right, everybody. So as promised, special guest to the podcast for this episode. Again, this is a discussion all about access control migration best practices. How we're going to get you from your old, antiquated access control system, maybe even a proprietary system, to something more current. We'd love to see you on the Genetec Synergis platform, but for these discussion purposes, we're going to keep it as open platform as possible, right? So you may be considering a migration from an older system to something that's not Genetec Security Center, and some of these discussion points that we hit on will be relevant for you as well. So I want this to be more of an open, broad best practices discussion. Of course, we'll talk about why you should make the move to Genetec Synergis later on. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome my special guest. Special guest, why don't you go and introduce yourself to everybody that watches the Inside Track.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, guys. My name is Sebastian. I'm the commercial lead for Pro Service here. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to answer all your questions and hopefully bring some clarity to everybody watching. So yeah, thank you, Phil.
Thank you for joining us, Seb. So let's start with, why even get off of your existing access control system, right? So typically we see access control systems go in and they stay there for many, many, many years. What are some of the things that you see that would make somebody want to change their access control system?
So it's actually a very good question. It's like so many things comes to mind. One of them is the unified aspect of things, right? So we tend to see that there is a system for video, there's a system for access control, right? Whereas for us, it's all one system that allows you to do so many things. The system that we worked on, that we replace on a daily basis, is pretty much as what you said, right? So outdated system. So the need from the customer is changing, is adapting with time. And it's perfectly normal. Like the business itself is moving forward, right? And their needs as well. So Security Center offers a ton of value, ton of features, and that's most likely the reason why they're changing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, when you look at an older access control only system, really what you're looking at is just a laundry list of events coming in, and then the ability to report on those events. And whether it's Security Center or some other platform, chances are most end users are looking at more of a user-friendly experience, right? It's all about the user experience these days. So if I can unify video with access control or access control with other building automation type workflows, that just makes the whole experience that much better. You can automate more things to happen, and it sort of takes the human element out of the equation. I think if we're thinking about access control in the 2020s, it should be less about like access granted, access denied, and door forced open reports, and it should be more like, what can I get the access control system to do in an automated way and then alert me to anomalous events? Because as most folks that use access control systems on the daily understand, a lot of that information, the access denies, the door forced opens, the door held opens too long, all that stuff ends up being background noise as well. I think one of the other reasons you want to get off of an access control platform is probably because it's proprietary. You've worked with a number of migrations going from proprietary to non-proprietary systems, right? Genetec's a non-proprietary system. What are some of the drawbacks of some of these proprietary systems?
So drawbacks, I mean, there's so many systems. So the drawback could be changing or adapting the way we work, right? Or the way the customer works, right? So obviously some systems that we worked on are extremely outdated, right? And I mean, we're going to talk about our solution architect service as well, but one of the mandate that we have most of the time is to understand the way it is today, right? And to find a way to capture the way it's supposed to be, but transport that into a security center world, right?
Right.
So it's usually a challenge, but a good challenge, because like I said before, right? So companies adapt with time, needs adapt with time, right? So what worked yesterday or the day before might not be working today. So that's our role, that's our job, to make sure that when we bring this forward, it fits their need today and will scale tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the challenges too with these proprietary systems, not to mention, not the least of which being they're probably old, right? If you're considering a migration from, from something to Genetec or some other new system, chances are you've had that access control system forever. But also chances are, if it's proprietary, the reason why you're leaving it is probably because either the parts are no longer available, the hardware is antiquated, it's using really poor communication standards, right? Your Wiegand standards, your 26-bit proc standards. So you're probably going to want to move to a more secure format as well. So that leads us to the migration process. And this is the area where, not just for the end user, but for the systems integrator, things get a little hairy, right? Like, I've got all this data, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard, like, you know what, we're just going to start from scratch. There's just so much junk data in this older access control system. Why even bother with the migration process? So let's talk through that, because you and your group have a ton of experience in this world of moving folks over from these older systems to Genetec Security Center. So let's talk about, like, I think a lot of that mindset from the integrator side especially is from attempting to do migrations from 5 or 10 years ago, right? Like, how did doing it the old-fashioned way 5 or 10 years ago, where they probably got burned, change, and how are migrations different today?
So this is a loaded question, right? So let's break it down. I think one of the key point here is that professional service at Genetec, we work closely with R&D, right? So we have many ways to automate tasks that are quote unquote only available to us, right? We're Genetec, we're making security center, right? So now going back to your question, way back when, the pretty much the only thing that, let's say, a system integrator or an end user, right, was able to do is in front of a keyboard, right? So the concept of starting over, we hear that on a daily basis. But the truth is, right, we understand databases. We don't know all the system by hearts, but their databases, the way they store the data, we're expert at it. So we take that data set, we understand use cases, the way they are using their outdated system today, what they want to do with Security Center, and with the help of our solution architect, we convert that data set into a Security Center optimal way, if you will, by enabling them to use the full potential of Security Center. So for us, starting fresh is rarely an option, right? There's so many valuable data that is available. Most of the time, there's a lot that needs to be kind of worked a bit, but that's on us, right? So we have various automation scripts, name it, right? We get it done. And
Right.
the beauty of it is we have the ability to show the customer and have a discussion about that data set. So, give you an example. We take a proprietary outdated system, right? We have a discussion with the customer. We're planning to do XYZ. This is where we're planning to be in 5-10 years from now. So we design the whole thing accordingly. We play with the data because there's some aspect of the data they want to keep. There's stuff that, for any reason, right, it's outdated. It should be removed. So we clean that, we remove that, we bring it to a control environment, we restore that. We have the ability to show the customer what they would get before we start executing the project, right? So with that, the customer sees the progress that we're making, see the changes that we're doing to their data set, and they like it because we're cleaning the data that manually it's humanly impossible to do, you know?
Yeah, especially with some of these larger systems, where you have thousands of card holders and hundreds of rules and thousands of doors. How does a human being or even a team of human beings go through that data in any sort of relevant way and come out with an end result that's going to be clean? It's impossible. So what are some of the questions? This is interesting to me because you mentioned, like, we have a discussion with the end user, and I think a lot of times when systems integrators are thinking about these access control migrations and then drawing the conclusion that, we'll just start from scratch, I think a lot of the reason why they get to that point is that lack of discussion. Like, maybe they don't know what the right questions to ask are. So what are some of those questions that you ask the end user to get them to the point of not just the migration, but where they want to be in that 5 or 10 year period?
Yeah, it's all about, technical debt, right? So you start with asking what's good with that. And the vast majority of them, like, they know how many cardholders they have, right? They know that it doesn't really match with their system right now, right? The access rules, some access rule, like, you could cut them by half, and do a better job at it, So it's all about having a discussion and put the right stakeholders at play, right? So again, I'm going back, I sound like a broken record, but our solution architect, that's their day-to-day, right? That's what they do. That's part of their role at a Genetec Pro service to fully capture the way it is set up today and ask the right question.
So you mentioned stakeholders, and I think that's critical because it's not just the security people, right, that use the access control system. It's facilities, it's other people. Like, who are the right stakeholders to even have in the room?
So it changes from customer to customer, but the idea is that's key information number one right now. So when we engage on a project, it's extremely important to do a communication plan, right? To fully understand the way that customer is organized, right? So give you an example, right? So the security officer is going to have other needs than, management, So the idea is to fully capture. So it changes drastically from customer to customer, and that's our role to fully understand that ecosystem at a customer site.
Would you or your solutions architect at any point say, you know what, we're in the middle of this migration, but we're missing some key data. Can you pull this other stakeholder in?
Absolutely. So, and again, so going back to the process, right? So our role is we don't want to quote unquote restore a database and the customer sees it live what they're getting from us. That's not how it works. The idea and the concept is that we capture the requirements, we convert that data set into security center, and we expose that data set to the customer. Right off the bat, what's going to happen is they're going to be like, whoa, this is missing. Oh, I didn't thought you would bring this. And it creates a dialogue. That dialogue is key for us to tailor this offering, this migration towards a product that is exactly what the customer needed.
Right. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if what you're getting is just a carbon copy of your 15-year-old legacy proprietary access control system in a new skin, what was the point?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, some of these migrations.
Here's what I found.
I'm not talking to you, Siri. She always butts in. One of the concerns that folks have is, some of these larger access control systems. You're talking hundreds of doors, and across multiple facilities. That's going to take some time to migrate off of. Like, even if the data set is clean and the migration from a database perspective is relatively easy, you're still going to have this transition period. Now, is it possible to run two very different access control systems at the same time?
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of working with us, right? So we adapt with the customer's environment. I'll give you an example. This is a perfect example of providing. Picture a global customer, multiple locations, right? Obviously, we can't execute on the plan on a Monday morning during, office hours, right? We're gonna have to have phases, and most of the time, what happens is two systems needs to run in parallel, and we can push it even further. We can synchronize those two systems, right? So again, based on the requirements from the customers, based on the time that we have to execute that project, right? We adapt, we create a plan, and we make sure that the customer is covered, right? So I would say that the most drastic example would be a project that spanned over like between weeks and months, as an example, that has two systems live at the same time that are fully synchronized, right? So there's a lot of moving parts here. Hence the reason why those type of project works hand in hand with a solution architect to fully craft tailored, I would say, the plan, and then we execute and we move forward.
Yeah, I would add to that it's extremely critical to have really good project management when it comes to doing something as advanced as taking two giant access control systems and getting them to run in parallel for any sort of period of time, because a lot of things can go wrong, right? If an access rule is configured one way on this side but a different way on that side, you might get access denied that you weren't supposed to, or access granted that you weren't supposed to, which might actually be worse depending on the type of agency that we're talking about. Now, you mentioned time, right? Weeks, months, years, potentially, depending on the size of the system. And I know this is a really loaded and tough question to answer, but for your average access control migration takeover, I'd say 100 doors or less, a few hundred card holders. What's the average time for one of these migrations?
So for the system size that you mentioned, we're talking about days here. Now, again, like you said, it's a loaded question. There's a couple of caveats, right? So obviously the environment has to be ready, right? The due diligence has to be done prior, right? Like the way they work, the way they're planning to work and everything, right? So the execution piece with the automation that we have reduced drastically. The human intervention, which tend to take the most time,
Now, are the automated processes that Genetec has in place specific to migrations from specific access control brands, or are they pretty broad in general?
They are broad in general. The purpose of this podcast right now is to talk about migration specifically, but very, very quickly, we have automation for pretty much, I don't want to say everything within security center, so there's quote unquote limitation for those automation, but we can drastically reduce the risk, human errors with those automation. And the ability that we have to stage and test those plans in-house, nobody else can do it. Like, we're making Genetec. We're making security centers, sorry.
Sure, absolutely. Now, I want to hammer on this point. I want to really bring this home because I don't think that that this gets enough attention in our space, but it's that concept of just starting from scratch. I've got this ancient access control system. I'm migrating to a new one. Why not just start from fresh?
Well, you can, right? But there's no point. There's no point with the tools that we have. There's, like I said, there's crucial information that we're storing to those outdated systems, right? And I think what is the game changer piece about all this is the way we have to automate, to script, to manipulate that data set into something completely new. That's the edge that brings it, to a brand new place.
Yeah, agreed. And I would also throw into that the potential downtime and the man hours or woman hours that it's going to take for you to now basically reinvent the wheel. Yeah, you might have a lot of garbage data in your older system, but that system is most likely still working at some level of efficiency. So why throw the baby out with the bathwater, basically?
Exactly. So again, going back to what I said before, right? Working with a solution architect, like, we weigh pros and cons. I would tell you right now that I don't remember a migration project that we started from scratch. We always brought crucial information, and it was a no-brainer in terms of man hours, right? So like the speed of execution of our work versus having somebody from the keyboard to perform the work, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that I would throw into that too is, from a systems integrator perspective, who ultimately is going to be the one holding the bag for the migration, what is your technician's time worth? I mean, that's a lot of manual entry. It's a lot of rudimentary stuff that they're going to have to do manually. Is that really the most effective use of their time? And ultimately, the more data you throw at a human, the more risk you raise of them making a mistake. And now go find that mistake.
Oh yeah, absolutely. On the risk factor, I would say the takeaway here is drastically mitigate the risk by removing, I don't want to say completely, but the vast majority of the human error. Because like I said, most of those migration on our side are done through automation. And it allows us to test thoroughly before we execute. So human error is drastically reduced.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the questions that I had prepared was, what could go wrong? And that's specific to sort of one of these manual access control migration projects. Like, what are some of the things that you've seen go wrong where somebody tried an access control migration manually?
I mean, honestly, I don't know where to start, right? Like, with the access control piece, it's critical, right? If it doesn't work, like, people can't get in. Like, it's a challenge, right?
Right.
So what can go wrong? Sky's the limit, right? So as opposed of looking at this, the glass half empty, I'm looking at this, the glass half full. And what I'm telling you is that we have multiple ways to vet, test. So when we execute on a plan, I don't want to say that we have assurance that it's going to work, but we have a really, really, really good idea of what could go wrong, right?
Yeah.
And we're prepared for it. Right, as opposed to respectfully, right, performing a manual task, thinking that in theory it should work, but what if it doesn't, right? The impact it has on the project, the relation with your peers, the relation with the customer is drastically impacted, right? And it's all connected to dollar sign as well, right? So when you think about it, engaging with Genetec Pro Service uh, should be a no-brainer.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like if you're the end user, the biggest concern you should have is when I flip that on button and I turn this one off, that system needs to work. Otherwise, you're going to get a very angry phone call from the CEO of the company, the president of the company, my access control card doesn't work. You don't want to get that phone call in the middle of the night, right? That would be bad.
Well, right? It's usually the CEO, right? The CFO, the badge, and it doesn't work. Murphy's Law, right? You don't want that.
That's right.
So
Yep. And at the systems integrator side, wouldn't it be nice to sort of have an insurance policy? Nobody's saying that the systems integrator shouldn't be involved in this process in any way, shape, or form, right? Because I could see some of them saying, well, that's my job. I'm the systems integrator and I'm going to do the access control migration. And my answer to that is you should 100% be involved, because ultimately you're the one hanging the boards, changing the readers, issuing the cards. You're going to be the one that's going to be maintaining that system. So you absolutely, when we talk about stakeholders earlier, you are one of those stakeholders that needs to have the seat at the table, and perhaps even be the liaison between professional services and the end user. But think of that level of assurance and insurance that you have when you could say, this is not my area of expertise, migrating from some old system that I've never worked on before to Synergis or to whatever. But these guys in professional services and these girls in professional services, they know what they're doing. This is their job. And if they get it wrong, I know who I can make that angry phone call to, versus you getting that phone call from the CEO in the middle of the night saying, my access control system's not working and you guys are responsible for the migration. So it's a different way to look at the whole process.
So think about this, right? It's all about sharing accountability, right? So without going into like the weeds here, we are at Pro Service outcome driven. So we're not quote unquote charging by the hour. We're charging based on the outcome, right? So when we engage on a project and we tell Mr. Customer that we're there to support and help until the migration is completed, we mean it, right? So we're sharing accountability. So we're a true partner for those type of projects. If something goes wrong, we're there with you guys and we're not stopping until it's done.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a common misconception, because most professional services, let's face it, are billed out by the hour or by the day, by the week, whatever. Genetec Pro Services are not. I mean, there's an hourly component, right? You have a certain number of hours that the work ought to be done in, but if the work isn't, and that's a reflection on us, the work's not done until it's done, and nobody's going to keep the clock running because we messed it up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and we all know how hard it is to get new money when the project is executing, right? So the idea is we're a true partner. We're there to support. We're there to help, and we don't stop until it's done.
And just to beat on this point a little bit more, at the systems integrator level, that assurance that if the project isn't completed correctly, or this change needs to be made, or at the 11th hour this thing happened that was unexpected, it's a very different outcome to say, hey, professional services, you missed this, or we added this and whatever, and so the outcome needs to be readjusted, versus, oh, well, my technician is scheduled to be on a different project in a week's time, and I don't have the internal resources to do this. Now I have to reshuffle my entire organization to manage this one unforeseen circumstance. So it's a completely different outcome, even at the systems integrator level. So speaking about outcomes, and things that can kind of throw these migrations for a bit of a curve. What are some of the most common things that folks forget about when they're migrating from one system to another?
So something which is a bit odd but happens, I would say often. So when we start the process, right, of capturing requirements, most of the time those systems are really, really outdated, right? They've been running forever, right? And it's sometimes a challenge to find the right stakeholders at that company who understand precisely how everything works, right? So sometimes what's going to happen is as we clean the data, we might not be bringing a specific, cardholders, right? And it turns out that they are needed, right? Our ability to do a complete 180 and revamp that database, restore it, like it's something else, right? So sometimes those requirements changes as we move forward, but it's on us to adapt as well.
To wrap the conversation up, because I think we really hit on a lot of key points here, the concept of moving from an older proprietary access control system to a new system, you really shouldn't have to worry about the migration, right, from one system to another, nor should you have to consider a complete start from fresh to get you to that point. There are services that are rendered by the manufacturer of your new access control system that will make that process as painless as possible. Now, we tried to keep this conversation up until this point pretty agnostic from a Genetec perspective. Obviously, we can only talk about what we know, right? So you're going to hear about it from the Genetec standpoint. But now let's talk about Genetec professional services, because I feel like our pro services are different, and the tools that we're leveraging may be different from some of the other folks in this space. So who is Genetec professional services and what do they do?
So good question, right? So first of all, we have a global presence, right? So that gives us a really, really good edge in supporting our customers, like those global deployment, right? What we do, how we do it, right? So we do pretty much obviously everything around security center, right? So we have a vast service portfolio. So sometimes the requirement is going to be to support an integrator to deploy a subset of servers, right? To a full-fledged global deployment. Same thing for upgrade, right? So you look at this. We're talking about outdated access control system. The same thing happens on the video side, where we've got customers that have been running an outdated version, like even end-of-life version of Security Center and or Omnicast.
I'm dealing with one of those right now. Giant system, 3,000 cameras, going from Omnicast 4. Whatever from years and years ago to Security Center 5.9. And let me tell you something. Having professional services involved in that migration made the whole process much easier.
Yeah, I bet. So I'm sure share like a really quick story without sharing names, but a really large police department that contacted us a couple of years ago. We're running on 4.8, Omnicast 4.8, and if memory serves me right, we had 4 or 5 hours to bring everything to the latest and greatest at that time. So what we did, we offered our QA service, which basically captured exactly the way it's set up right now. So we're talking about network latency. We're talking about hardware specs. We're talking about firmware spec on everything connected to that system. Understand use cases, right? And we ran a bunch of tests on how we're going to be bringing that system up to speed in no time at all, right? So we developed some automation. That system had, if I'm not mistaken, between 4 between 3 and 4,000 cameras, and it went flawlessly, right? So it's the type of things that we do every day, right?
Right. Now, getting into a little bit more of the weeds on the access control side, how does professional services handle a migration to Synergis? Like, what are the offerings that are available?
So, so you're talking about a migration, or are you talking about an upgrade to?
Migration.
Right. All right. So for the upgrade, for the migration, again, so offering, I would say the premium offering, if I may call it like this, solution architect engage, they want to fully capture the requirements. We play with the data set, we expose that data set to the customer to show them how it would look like, right? So some customer decide to bring exactly because their data is clean. They spent some time on it in the past months, years. They know exactly that data set. It's well crafted. They want to bring it forward. We do that as well, right? So we're very, very flexible. My experience tells me that the vast majority needs some help because it's most likely outdated system that we would be porting towards Security Center with added feature. So we tend to play with that data a lot, you know. So as part of the offering, that's pretty much it.
So it sounds like the premium offering, as you would say, is more like a white glove service, right? It's from we're going to take you from the door of your old Toyota Corolla to the Ferrari, right? Or for me, the Tesla, right? You're going
Yeah,
to
exactly.
go to there. Okay, and then um, I guess to hit on this last beat one more time, why leverage Genetec professional services to handle the migration versus just doing it yourself? And I guess this should be focused more on the systems integrator, right? The end user is not going to do the migration themselves. Why should a systems integrator leverage Genetec professional services versus doing it themselves?
So two things: risk mitigation, right, and share accountability. Like I think it sums it all.
Yeah, totally agree. Uh, I think you've said it all at this point. Anything else to add to the conversation? Anything that we missed?
No, I think we covered all the topics that I really wanted to present today. So thank you for your time, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely, Seb. Greatly appreciate it. If you are watching this episode and you're considering a migration from your older access control system to something new, or you want to learn more about Genetec Professional Services, I will drop a link down below to our new website that talks all about all of the different professional services that we have to offer. And that goes for whether or not you're an end user watching this, or if you're a systems integrator and you want to learn more about how you can leverage Genetec professional services to drive better outcomes for your business. Again, link will be down below. Thank you so much for watching this episode and sticking all the way to the end. My name's Phil Coppola. This is Sebastian Pilot, and we will see you on the next one.